What's your reaction to Pam Bondi as Trump's choice to be the next attorney general?
Well, I mean, better than Gaetz. I mean, a bag filled with peanut butter would be better than Gaetz. So, it's a low bar. But let's keep in mind an interesting thing. So in 2013, I think it was, Pam Bondi was considering joining a lawsuit against Trump University. And then Donald Trump gave her $25,000 as a campaign donation, and she backed out of that lawsuit. So that's an interesting thing. But look, she'll probably be approved by the Senate, go on to be Attorney General. Trump has a right to pick who he wants generally, unless it's Matt Gaetz, and I think she probably fits into that category.
So the implosion of Matt Gaetz, do you think that's good news or bad news for Pete Hegseth? Because, look, if there was a share of the sex scandal headline, Gaetz was occupying more of it. Now, though, there's this detailed graphic police report about Pete Hegseth.
It's definitely bad for Pete for a couple of reasons. Like you said, Gaetz was taking all the oxygen out of the room. We only have so many brain bites to speak about these things, and so he was getting most of those. But also, look, it's not uncommon for a nominee for a cabinet position to get tanked during that process. Matt Gaetz did not get tanked during that process. He actually withdrew voluntarily. So now all the focus is going to be on Pete. Maybe a little Tulsi Gabbard, just kind of her policies. And I think there's a better chance now that Hegseth is not actually approved by the Senate than it was before. Before Gaetz would have been the sacrificial lamb.
So, you heard Pete Hegseth today. He said on Capitol Hill of the police report, he said the matter was fully investigated. I was completely cleared, and that's where I'm going to leave it. Again, we should note he wasn't charged. He also wasn't cleared. But what does your gut tell you about where Republicans will go with this?
Yeah, I mean, the vast majority of Republicans will do whatever Donald Trump wants, and he wants it to be Pete Hegseth. Now, the question is, there's a few Republicans in the Senate, particularly, that don't necessarily play that game. I think Mitch McConnell, Bill Cassidy, some others, that may have a real problem with it. Look, he's going to run, obviously, the most lethal, but one of the biggest, if actually the biggest government bureaucracy that exists, and in charge of our military members, who we take very seriously. So I think there's going to be some senators that actually kind of look at this very critically. And I would say it's about a 50-50 chance he gets approved right now. Maybe a little better than 50-50 just because everybody is super into Donald Trump. So we'll see what happens.
So this goes, you think, to the confirmation process with the hearings. Do you think it'll feel like the Brett Kavanaugh confirmation process? Republican Senator Bill Hagerty actually brought up the Kavanaugh hearings today.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to be way more intense because if you think about it, again, yes, Hegseth was not charged with that. He also wasn't exonerated, as you mentioned, but the military's had an issue with sexual assault that they've been trying to address for a number of years. And now you're putting a guy that's potentially guilty of that in charge of the Pentagon. And so I think the hearings are going to be pretty brutal for him. And we'll see what comes out of that. Keep in mind, if there was any other potential victims of Hegseth, I'm not saying there are, but if there were, they may come out in the next couple months. And so this could get pretty interesting again. And it should be looked at very hard because, again, this is the military we're talking about, not some small government bureaucracy, but probably the most important function of the federal government and certainly the most lethal.